MultimediaJay Radio Style Theater presents the 222 Bot.
You are listening to MultimediaJay Radio Style.
Okay, and because I don't want that somewhat depressing audio blog to be position numero uno on this channel for longer than absolutely necessary, let's move on here into what I like to call the Monolith Dilemma. What's up, everybody? This is Jay, also known as MultimediaJay, and you're listening to MultimediaJay Radio Style, coming at you via the interwebs from the Geek Suite. Geek Suite Studios, what do you want to call it? Whatever. Yeah. I've been using the nickname The Geek Suite for places I've lived for quite some time, and it kind of fits this whole loft and everything, so The Geek Suite. I actually first started using the term The Geek Suite my last summer in college when I was on campus, working on campus that summer for the audiovisual department and being the mailroom person for the vice president of information technology, which is rather boring and dreary, but it was made up for by the audiovisual stuff that I got to help out with over the summer with some of the technology we were rolling out, and I got to help out with the computer rollouts that summer too, so fun stuff. But that last summer in college, I was actually roomed up in one of the suite buildings on campus, which usually the sophomores and juniors are in, with a whole bunch of folks who worked in IT, and it was a heck of a lot of fun. To make a long story short, I don't think I will ever experience that nerdy of a living arrangement setup ever again. I mean, we're talking a multi-room suite with a common room and stuff like that in a college dorm that is literally all computer nerds. You got myself, you got myself messing around with AV stuff and computer stuff. You have somebody building a new system. Then you got somebody else who, playing an early MMO. I think it was Asheron's Call or Asheron's Call 2 or something, back then. World of Warcraft wasn't even out yet. So, you have folks playing around with early grindy MMOs. I mean, it doesn't get any nerdier than that. I mean, when you can come home in the evening and you know you're not the only person who would watch something like The Screensavers in the suite, that was nerdy. So we jokingly called our place the Geek Suite, and I've kind of held on to the name ever since for places I've been. So hope you folks don't mind, and if by wild chance any of those guys ever hear any of this, I hope they don't mind either. This is a big salute to what was probably the most fun summer I ever had when I was in college. Too bad it had to be the last one. Anyways, we can talk about the Geek Suite and college stories later. But for now, we're looking at a very ominous-looking picture of Tuxedo in its sunset years. Ah, yeah, the poor thing, definitely. I took some other pictures of the computer, and they don't look flattering at all. If you take a picture with flash, you see little flecks show up on the side. I don't know if that's lint particles from when I cleaned it with paper products, or maybe I kind of rubbed off some bits and pieces of paint here and there when I tried cleaning it with stronger stuff like alcohol and like 91% alcohol and Goo Gone. Goo Gone and metal, they don't really mix. So, yeah, well, this computer has seen better days. And considering, I believe this actually was the case that housed piano's parts, which are now in the silver bullets, way back in the mid to late 2000s. So this case has definitely had a good run. And we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about what I call the Monolith Dilemma, which sounds kind of cool, actually. So this is going to be like a mini-series that has its own tag. But let's talk about building a new computer in the year 2015 and establish where we're beginning from here. The first thing we got to ask when we're talking about building a new system, well, let's define things here. Why am I calling this the Monolith Dilemma? It's not like it's big or anything, but here's what's happening. What I want to do, I want my next system to have a fractal design, probably a defined series, silent focused case with the option of, improving the airflow in the warmer months of the year and then quieting it down in the wintertime. So, basically my next case is going to be a fractal design of some sort. Probably the defined series. And I want to go with black again for a color because black works really well with technology. I mean, it's just two-tone. 10 years ago when I was getting out of college, two-tone was popular with black and silver, but that's gone the way of the dinosaur. Nowadays, you just see black, 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 black everywhere. All these fingerprint magnet devices like the original PlayStation 3 and stuff like that. And, of course, my TV's a bit of a fingerprint magnet with its glossy black finish, but everything's black nowadays. So it's basically, it's definitely not the usual when you have any color besides black. Maybe because black's a very neutral color, or more importantly, because a lot of stuff's made out of plastic. If the plastic is black to begin with, if the plastic has issues that other colors might discolor with later on, like, for example, all those beige computer cases that turned ugly yellow because of chemical reactions in the plastic, maybe when that happens to the plastic on, black peripherals, like just about everything I have right now, it won't be as noticeable. Yeah, it's one of those deals, maybe, I don't know. Anyways, black is a very popular color. And because I want to get a fractal design case, and it's probably going to be something from the Define series, basically, what's going to happen is my next computer is most likely going to look like the Monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey. You know, the beginning of the movie, do 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 do, and you see the camera slowly pan up this big black thing with the sun shining behind it. You know what? When I get this computer to go live, I totally have to do something like, no, just kidding. But yeah, I'm thinking my next system is probably going to be called Monolith because it's going to look like the Monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey, because I want a big black fractal design case that looks like a big black block. So it's just, yeah, so that's where the name comes from. Other things, too, that are basically set in stone at this point. I do want the case to be a black fractal design case, and I do want this machine to run Windows 10 out of the box. So we've got some time to go over the details on this before Windows 10 launches, but I will be building this system to install Windows 10 on when Windows 10 is released. So this will be a system that is made for Windows 10. As far as other stuff goes, it's still up in the air at this point. I'm keeping an eye on coming processor releases from AMD that might make the FX series more interesting to me. If they can get the power consumption down, I wouldn't mind not having the fastest chip out there, or one that is only marginally faster than my Phenom 1090T if it cuts the power consumption. The rest of the details we will talk about in this mini-series in MultimediaJay radio style as we start tossing around ideas. But there's a couple of things, too. As far as the starting point's concerned, I can't really say at this point whether I'm actually going to end up building this computer, because there's a lot of crap coming up this year. For one thing, I'm going to get smacked all over the place when it comes to money. First and foremost, I'm looking at buying new summer tires for my car, so that'll set me back a few hundred. And there might be some other things that are expensive too. Like I think I might need brake work done, which will be expensive as well. So I'm probably going to get whacked with some serious extra bills. Plus, of course, we have ever-screwed energy and other things like that, just driving us people in Connecticut to our limits. Although some local politicians are firing back, they want to refine the Connecticut PURA, the Public Utility Regulatory Association, to be more transparent about things like the rate hikes that Everscrewed rammed through at the beginning of winter. So there's a lot of stuff that could come up. Probably the biggest issue, though, in terms of building this computer is making it exciting enough that I want to spend the money to do so. I might just have to settle for some upgrades or something to Tuxedo or something like that in the worst case scenario. But while we're on this discussion, let's talk about the current state of Tuxedo. Besides the cosmetic issues, because this case is several years old, there are some issues that I've been having with this case lately, namely the fact that the case design is very outdated. It won't handle large video cards very well without squishing cables or things along those lines. It's also a top power supply. It's also an older ATX standard top power supply case from a hardware standard that dates back to the days when computers didn't have large fans in the back. So when I was building the Silver Bullet, you had a high-end case if your case had anything bigger than 80mm fans. That is very, very different nowadays. Nowadays, you will get at least 120, unless you're buying a specialty case. And the odds are if you buy an enthusiast case, you're probably going to have 140 mil fans exhausting the air if you go with air cooling at all instead of some kind of water cooling setup. And a lot of companies are trying to take all the guesswork out of water cooling too, like these sealed use water cooling kits that are showing up on the market nowadays. So I remember one of my friends in the Geek Suite back in college, he basically tried to make his system less complicated, but before he tried building the system with those horrendous 60 millimeter fans in that Antec case that I hope he didn't pay too much for, he had a full tower case with like 8 5 1/4 bays for drives that he was using, and it was so much airspace in that thing. It was just crazy. But he had a water cooling system in there. He actually had a radiator like paper clipped with like unfolded paper clips and all twisted together. He had like a radiator on the back of this full tower case, and he actually used a Ziploc container as his water storage for his extra water. So, yeah. Definitely a hack job water cooling setup, but he had water cooling. And he had a computer that sounded like a fish tank when it was on, because I think it used something similar to a fish tank's water pump to circulate the water. Anyways, well, he might as well have. No, okay, I'm not going to say he should have had a computer that looked like a fish tank with fish in it, but watch, some case modder now is going to build a system with an actual fish tank in it and stuff like that. That's water cooled with water from the fish tank. Anyways, yeah, it's stupid. Let's quit this nonsense. But anyways, back in those days, the power supply, with how hot processors ran, because we didn't have the focus on power efficiency that we have nowadays, and with the relatively smaller size of the fans that you'd put in as case fans back then, it was pretty much part of the ATX standard that the power supply with its two big fans would help out with cooling the system. Nowadays, though, we got 140 mil fans on the back, so why subject your power supply to all that heat that's coming off of the processor and accelerate the aging of the power supply? Nowadays, you look for cases, and they're basically, I call them dust suckers with the power supply on the bottom. But nowadays, of course, there's filters for that kind of thing. So you just have a little filter in the back that you pull out to clean every so often. But yeah, dust suckers, because they suck the dust up from underneath the computer. So never been too fond of the design, but I can see why it exists. And of course, the heat from the power supply gets directly exhausted out of the case. So then it might help with the cooling a bit, especially when nowadays you have top fans spitting out the top, as well as your traditional exhaust fan blowing out the top by the side. So yeah, I'd say the ATX standard's been still in decent shape nowadays, but as far as Tuxedo goes, the design has really been showing its age lately. First and foremost, the case only supports 120 mil fans. So what I did was I actually bought some fan funnels so I can put in 140 mil fans, and there's a little bit more air pressure coming out the back because those 140 mils are getting funneled down to 120 millimeters and stuff like that. But it would be nice if I could get rid of the fan adapters. This is basically when I hit rock bottom with the Silver Bullet too, with the original configuration, when I was using fan adapters for that as well. Actually, I think with the current setup, I am using fan adapters. I think. Oh, no. I have some Vantex Stealths, but I could use fan adapters to go from 80 to 120 millimeters and experiment with it that way. But I don't want to create like a hot spot in the case behind where the filters are and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But yeah, computers have changed since I built the first computer that went inside Tuxedo's case many years ago. And maybe it's time to take some of these changes into account. Another big issue that I'm running into at Tuxedo is heat as well. I can't use the built-in overclocking because I'm using the stock cooler, which for the 1090T was installed in late 2010 with the original pre-applied heatsink compound. So now that I know about like the P method versus the spread method and the X method and all the other and the plus method and all the other ways of applying heatsink compound, I've often wondered, what if, say, I scraped off and cleaned off the rest of that compound and put on some like Arctic Silver or something like that, put on some new stuff, because I've actually had some cooling issues with the CPU. I am using the stock cooler. I could probably upgrade that to something better if I really wanted to, but the question with a computer this old is, do I really want to sink money into it, especially with something that can't be brought over to a new system? When I bought my GeForce GTX 760, I believe it was last year, yeah. When I bought my GeForce GTX 760, it was with the understanding that it would go with me into the next system. So that's also why I haven't bothered upgrading the RAM. I'm also not running RAM at the highest speed that this motherboard supports. So I got a little bit of a RAM bottleneck too. So there is some things to gain from a newer system, but as far as Tuxedo goes, I could also do some upgrades by replacing the main drive in the drive array, the data drive, with a hybrid drive, so the most commonly accessed files get accessed from solid-state memory instead of the mechanical disk. So I could do something like that to improve the speed of applications that are launching from the mechanical drive. The other drive in the array is just for backing things up, so it's completely mechanical. Although I did run C-tools on both mechanical drives this morning, and even though both drives have a few years on them, they both passed. So maybe we're past those days where, you know, hard drives would conk out very shortly after their warranty expired. I don't know. I think these might have had 5-year warranties on them. I'd have to check, but yeah, well, these were Seagates that I bought because of the higher warranty, and it was from before the Thailand floods, which were in 2011. So I'd say the drives, even if they had a 5-year warranty, are probably out of warranty by now. Yeah, anyways, as far as upgrades go versus building a new system, I'd say Tuxedo's probably bottlenecked enough at this point that we should probably sunset this thing. If other than new video cards or anything like that, eventually with the video card upgrades, I would get CPU bottlenecked anyways. So that really means that, yeah, I probably should look at building something newer. The question is what and when? Obviously after Windows 10 comes out, which would be later in the year, but am I going to have the money for it? Is it going to be worth it? Is it exciting enough of an upgrade that I'd want to do this? There are so many unanswered questions when it comes to what I'd want to build for Monolith later this year that I think it's worth discussing in the radio style series. So if you want to chime in, go ahead, leave some comments. And let's see if a computer audio commentary can get anywhere near as many views as a computer tech video. So let's see how this all works out, and I'll bring up the rest of the questions about the design of this computer later on in this mini-series. But for now, thanks for listening, everybody. This is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for listening, and thanks for stopping by. You're listening to MultimediaJay Radio Style. Don't touch that dial. Actually, wait a minute. This is the internet. I really don't think there is a dial. Anywho.